This is SoundNotion, the weekly podcast for new music and music news. I'm Patrick Gullo.
I'm David McDonald.
I'm Sam Merciers.
And this week we're joined by the three finalists chosen for the 2014 American Composers Forum National Composition Contest. They are Michael Laurello, Todd Lerew, and Kristina Warren. These composers were chosen from a pool of over 250 applicants to compose a work for the new music ensemble So Percussion.
What?
Their pieces will be premiered by So Percussion on July 20th at Princeton University, part of the So Percussion Summer Music Institute 2014. One of the works will be chosen to receive the final prize, which includes an additional cash award and future public performances by the group. So it looks like all of you will be duking it out, so keep it clean on this program. Thanks for everyone for being on the show.
It just got really weird again.
Thanks. It's good to be here.
So, first of all, I guess we can start with someone like Michael, for instance. How did you originally find out about this contest? And what was it, just a call for scores online that you heard about it? Or were you in touch with the group beforehand, knew this was going to be happening?
I think it was, I think a friend of mine was applying to it and had mentioned it to me. And I had thought at the time, like, oh, I don't really have anything good to send. And and then the deadline came up and I just kind of decided to send something that day. And so it was just a friend of mine. He told me about it.
So this is a piece that didn't have a recording.
It did have a recording, but it's not a piece that's completed. So it's kind of like a half completed demo recording is what I had sent. About 5 minutes of a 10-minute piece. And yeah.
Great. Kristina, same?
Well, similar. I guess I sort of was looking around for contest applications, and I guess I was sort of in a similar boat. I didn't really expect much to come of it, but I had a piece and a recording that I thought might be appropriate to send, and so I sent it off, and there you go.
Great. And Todd, I'm figuring the same. You're groggy. It's 8 a.m. in LA. Sorry.
That's all right. Yeah, not a very special story on my end either. I actually didn't remember applying, but I guess it must have been a very easy application, and I thought it was such a long shot that I'd forgotten about it. And then I heard back, and I was like, I didn't apply to anything in Minnesota because that's where the American Composers Forum is.
Right.
And then I realized what it was. So yeah.
It seems to me, I was going to say, the thing with a lot of these contests is that you just expect that there are going to be so many applicants. The judges can afford to be picky with what they're looking for. So I know that at least for me, when I send stuff, I don't really expect necessarily a return on it, but it's, great when that happens.
Well, certainly. And then the fact that there are over 250 for this one, that's still a big number of scores to weed through, recordings to listen to. Was just so we're all clear, was the recording was it mandatory to send one in?
Well, we had to send some, like a work sample, but it wasn't the piece we're working on. There was no requirement even for an idea.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I myself sent a piece for electric guitar quartet, which is, of course, much different than So Percussion, but it had a recording as well.
Yeah. So have you guys gotten to work with So at all yet, or been in contact with So? We were talking about, whether it made sense to have a group of finalists on the show who are all still in the middle of the competition, really. And one of my observations was, well, if you're getting to write a piece for So Percussion, that sounds like a pretty big win already. Have you guys gotten to work with them at all yet?
Yeah, a little bit.
So what has that been?
It's been great. They've been really just kind of, at least there's been a couple email communications, and I've just kind of said, what is it that you're looking for? What would you like? How would you like to work? And they've been keeping it really open, like not wanting to give an instrument list or not. The thing was just kind of write what you want to write, and then we'll rein you in a little bit if we need to, which I think is a great way to work, but also incredibly scary to have to work that way. It's kind of, you can do anything you want now, go and do that.
Yeah. Go ahead, Kristina.
Oh, I was going to say I completely agree. I've also traded some emails with them, and I asked initially if there were any sort of restrictions instrumentally, and there were nothing. I was expecting that there would be at least something that they didn't want to work with, but sort of a similar response, just kind of do anything and we'll go from there.
Yeah, and if you listen to Todd, did you have something you want to add?
No, I was just going to also add that I'd been in touch briefly, and I had a very strange initial proposal of filling drums with different gases to try to change their resonance, and they were very open to that, but it's already not going to work out. So,
oh, that's unfortunate. Have you done that before?
No, but I was trying to do some tests and having little luck.
All right. That's really interesting. So you guys mentioned that they were super open to anything, and that I think that being open to filling drums with gases, I think is the craziest thing that I've heard recently.
If there's a group that will do it, it's them.
Exactly. Well, that's what I was going to say. If you listen to their recorded works and if you look at their list of stuff they've done recently, it's all over the map. And they've got stuff that's really kind of groove oriented, and some stuff that's just really spacey, and all kinds of different electronics things, interactive electronics, and weird instruments. And I've expressed my love before on the show for their quarter tone steel pan that one of their guys has.
I think if you suggested filling the performers with different gases, they'd be down for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a different ensemble.
Yeah. No, go ahead, Patrick.
I was going to say, it must be a little bit difficult. I can imagine, even if you're having email correspondence, these percussion ensemble, that can be such a touchy, delicate flower there. There's so much that can happen in the instrumentation. As a piece evolves with workshopping something. I mean, I would personally want to be there, to listen to what they're doing, sounds, even things like how the way to hit something. I might want to have to see it or hear it. Has that come across your mind at all? I mean, is it a little bit difficult writing for something like this than it would be, let's say, string quartet?
I think it's easier because, for me, it's easier because since it is percussion, that they're open to much more things, and I can sort of test things out in a preliminary way and see whether it'll work at all and how I might want them to do it. Whereas, I don't play the string quartet instruments, so I'd have to work much more closely with instrumentalists in that case to determine what's possible.
So everything you have written, Todd, so far has been, you've tested it yourself.
It's mostly things that I can figure out how to do myself first, yeah, because I don't even know beforehand whether it'll work at all. And plenty of sketches have been totally scrapped in the process.
Oh, yeah. As happens with composition.
Yep.
All right. So I was thinking that actually we might listen to a little bit of, since Todd, we were just talking with you, we could talk a little bit about your music, specifically. So, I mean, what would you say you generally, since it sounds like you're very into writing for percussion, is this a kind of ensemble, kind of instruments that you generally tend to gravitate towards?
It's different every time, but it's definitely, I guess some things that I do, or many things would fall in the umbrella of percussion. I use a lot of invented instruments and found objects and unique preparations of other instruments. So I think the percussion world has a sort of built-in openness to sounds of the world, which other instrumental categories sometimes have less of.
Mm. Yeah, I can certainly see that.
So it's a pretty natural fit for me.
Do you incorporate? I mean, would you say your percussion writing influences other writing that you do that isn't strictly percussion?
Well, each piece is sort of like its own idea. I mean, they certainly have things in common, but it's not. I wouldn't say that there's a specific percussion thread which informs other work, so much as just like a general set of ideas that I tend to work with.
Dave, do we happen to have any audio queued up for?
We can. Is there something you want?
I think we should just pick something from SoundCloud and see where that takes us.
Just randomly select a SoundCloud recording.
Well, if Todd has a specific request,
maybe the easiest entry point, which is also the piece I submitted for this contest, it's on the SoundCloud. It's called Spherical Harmonics, and it's for a choir of people singing and whistling simultaneously.
Okay.
Nice.
So this is Spherical Harmonics by our guest Todd Lerew. Let's see if this works. So that was called Spherical Harmonics by our guest Todd Lerew. Todd, can you explain what was going? You mentioned whistling and singing. Can you explain what was going on there?
Sure. So that's just the beginning. Basically, everybody is given the same pitch class to start with in any register, and then they add a whistled tone while still singing at whatever note comes out naturally, because most people have not practiced this technique enough to be able to control both voices independently. So you get a sort of indeterminate cluster of whistled tones just resulting from that action.
And it's just based on whatever's comfortable for the performer?
Right, yeah, it's just sort of whatever comes out.
Cool.
And the more people you have, the more complicated that sound gets.
And so how many people were singing in that recording?
That's 17 people. It's the Canticum Ostrava choir.
Very cool.
I would love to hear like 117 people doing that.
Yeah, get them together.
Yeah. Did you find that, I don't know how much rehearsal you got for that, but did you find that over the course of the more familiar they became with it, that the whistling began to coalesce around certain pitches, or no?
It really doesn't. It ends up being pretty difficult to control. But I would say they did get more confident in the technique in general. And then there's also dynamic changes, which tends to shift the pitch of the whistle as well.
I can imagine that a alternative kind of performance space, especially outside, would be perfect for something like that.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
So how many times has that been performed?
Well, the current version only twice. This was last summer in Ostrava in the Czech Republic in a cathedral there, and then it was done just last week at a house concert in The Hague.
Oh, great. A house concert in The Hague.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's great. So, Michael, just kind of following Todd, I mean, would you say that your percussion writing would influence your other works as well?
Yeah, I think, I mean, I guess I think kind of as a percussionist in a way. I'm a pianist, and I think my style piano, coming from jazz originally, is sort of a percussive style. So I'm kind of always thinking of most instruments I'm writing for in that way. So yeah, I think the idea of a percussion ensemble seems like a good fit. And I'd say, yeah, it does definitely inform my other writing.
Certainly. I would. So Dave, maybe we can pick a tune here from Michael's SoundCloud. Michael, is there anything specific that you think would be a good representation for the show?
I'm not sure what's up there. Right?
I'm looking at "Tell Hope Everything You," and then there's an ellipse.
Right.
Because it's not
okay.
big
Yeah.
enough.
That can work. That's a piece for either solo prepared acoustic guitar and playback, or two guitars and playback. So yeah, that one works.
Cool. So what is the full title? It looks like it's cut off in the sound. Oh, here it is. "Tell Hope Everything You Hear." Is that right?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. So this is "Tell Hope Everything You Hear" by Michael Laurello. That's very cool. Thank you for sharing that with us. I love how the electronic glitchy stuff kind of sneaks in gradually. It's at the beginning it sounds almost just like a kind of a electric guitar counterpoint, kind of electric counterpoint kind of thing, and then slowly these little bits of other stuff sneak in.
Yeah.
So it's very cool. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure, thanks.
So Kristina, I think we should move on to some of your works.
Okay.
You're next.
The
Yeah.
firing line.
So, yes. So, I mean, first of all, tell us a little bit about your percussion writing and how you think it might be different or similar to the other guys.
Yeah, well, I'm in a little bit of a different boat. I come from a vocal background myself, and I have written for percussion before, although not percussion quartet. It's always been part of a large ensemble or a mixed chamber ensemble, that sort of thing. Yeah, and as far as sort of the influence of percussion writing on other things, I mean, yes and no. I would say that in certain ways, I sort of approach each piece on its own terms. But in other ways, there are things I'm sort of consistently interested in investigating in my music. So I guess there may be some overlap. I mean, I sort of, especially because this ensemble is so fantastic, I'll really try to explore and take advantage. But yeah, still sort of in the conceptual design phase, I would say.
Yeah. So with So Percussion, are you like as far as experimental goes, are you still like working on maybe figuring out different uses for existing instruments, or actually creating things from scratch?
Yeah, TBD.
Okay.
I mean, I think I don't know. I think there are a lot of possibilities with either. Even if you talk about an existing instrument, for instance, I know they've worked with Sixon, for instance, on their performance of Xenakis Pleiades, which I consider, I guess, somewhat uncommon in the realm of mallet percussion, the Sixen. But on the other hand, they've done stuff that really is more constructed or found. They've done Lang's so-called Laws of Nature, the teacups and the flower pots. They've done, I'm sure, much more experimental stuff than that. So I guess I just, whether it's sort of an established instrument or a new one, I don't know, I consider everything to have sonic possibilities.
I'm wondering if you're going to have them sing. I'm sure they would be up for it.
Yeah, it's actually not something I had considered. Well, no, it's not true. The thought had crossed my mind, but I don't know. Yeah, still kind of investigating. I think if I were going to do that, I've seen a lot of pieces, I mean, some that are effective, but others that ask non-vocalists to sing, and it, in my opinion, it comes off kind of weird. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's a way to do it well, and they seem open-minded. So yeah, something to consider. Maybe
make noises with their mouth is a better way to describe what I'm thinking. Not necessarily singing.
Yeah,
you're talking about Meredith Monk.
Yeah, sure. There's singing or whatever sort of vocalizing. There's a huge range of possibilities out there.
When you're writing for a group like this, that's at the level of So Percussion, whenever I have written for groups that I just know are gonna practice the snot out of the thing that I'm writing and gonna be really, really careful with every little thing, I often find that I'm like, oh man, I have this great opportunity. I should write the most crazy, balls out, weird, hard thing that I can do. Do you feel that because it's not often that you have the opportunity to write for a group that's at the level of So Percussion? Do you feel that pressure to like take advantage of all the things that they can uniquely do?
Yeah, well, I guess I would first say that I always feel privileged working with performers. I think that's probably my favorite thing to do professionally. And whether they've received this sort of amount of acclaim that So Percussion has or not, perhaps if they're in the earlier part of their careers or whatever, I always enjoy that. And I really like working with performers on whatever it is they do well. But yeah, that being said, I agree that working with So Percussion is a unique privilege. I don't know. It is difficult. It can be challenging. I think I mentioned that they just they have no limitations whatsoever, which is perhaps a little bit daunting trying to think of a piece for them. I guess the other thing I would say is that I tend to try to think of it as very, I don't necessarily go for more challenge. I go for more detail. I try to think of it as a lot of my own compositional work is electronic or electroacoustic music, and I try to do really tight production, essentially. So when I would transfer that to, for instance, this piece for So Percussion by saying I'm going to write something that's very detailed and that they can really dig into in this sort of nitty-gritty, perhaps instead of thinking of it like writing something that's very challenging, writing something that's very detailed.
Cool. So we should probably play something of Kristina, since we played something from Todd and Michael. Kristina, do you have any thoughts on which of these recordings that I have up on your SoundCloud that you'd like to share?
I would suggest Pogpo, which is a piece for electric guitar quartet, and the piece I submitted to this contest.
Oh, cool. All right. So this is Pogpo by our guest, Kristina Warren. So that's an excerpt from Pogpo. So, first of all, I really enjoy the weird microtonal stuff in there. I'm curious. You said that you're not, you don't have a lot of experience writing for percussion. How much experience did you have writing for guitars before you wrote that piece?
Not much. I actually had not written for electric guitar before. I had done some acoustic, which is a little bit of a different world, in my opinion. Yeah, that was kind of a new thing for me.
So, guitar is one of those instruments that is technically very, very specific. There's not a lot of guitar stuff that you can apply from your, orchestration education from the other instruments that you learned about. There are things about one woodwind that is similar to another woodwind, but there's nothing about. Well, there's not much about, say, writing for violin or viola that is going to apply to writing for a guitar, and it's its own little world. It's like harp or organ in a way is a similar thing. How did you get into? And it's interesting, I should say, that two of you wrote for guitar. So how do you approach something like that that's so specific and so? There's a word for what I'm trying to say, but I can't think of it. That's so different from everything else. How do you get into that?
Sure. Well, I can maybe try to tackle that. I handled that problem by going the indeterminacy route. And, well, this is sort of, I can expand upon this, but the short answer is that I took an initial musical inspiration, which is a Korean folk music called panzuri, which is just one voice and one percussionist. And I really liked the vocal nuances that were there. So I said, but I need to translate this for electric guitars. So I used a color system where colors can map to a variety of pitches. They choose the color to pitch mapping. But then from there, the colors are placed above and below a single line. So that controls their slight sharpness or flatness and these sort of bending effects. You sort of alluded to the microtonal sound. And so I was working with Dither, which is an outstanding electric guitar quartet based in New York. And I sort of had the sense that they wanted to improvise or wanted to do something where they had more choice input in actually creating the score. So that was my approach. I guess I would say I had a sound that I was going for, and I knew that they would contribute creatively to the process as well. So I devised this color scheme to accomplish that.
So how much then, if you're giving, I'm always interested in the amount of control that composers are willing to relinquish to the performers, and sometimes it's very, very specific, and you feel like you're giving the performers very little control, even though that's not quite right. Obviously, they're making a lot of decisions still, but did you know what it was going to sound like, I guess, is my question when you handed it over to them the first time?
No, I had a sort of a general ballpark I hoped it would be in, and I gave them verbal descriptions for timbre. They brought a bunch of pedals and that sort of thing. So I would say warm or gritty or this sort of instruction. Fortunately for me, they did a great job with it. They made really great choices. I like doing that. I like, I guess you would say, handing over control. I like sort of playing with that balance between composer and performer.
Yeah, well, I think it's gives a greater depth to the collaboration.
Yeah, I agree.
So, would you say that also goes hand in hand with not being as specific in notation as you could be?
Well, yes and no. For instance, Pogpo, there was a lot of pitch choice going on and timbre choice as well, but rhythm was very strictly notated. I gave them essentially no choice in that regard. So for me, I think when I do something like that, and this, I'm sure it could vary, but it has worked with the performers I've worked with, be very clear. I try to separate different realms. Maybe pitch, there's a lot of choice, and they can choose. I give them certain rules within which they can choose. But rhythm, there's not a lot of choice. So kind of different parameters. It's very clear how much choice or input they have.
Kind of setting up the rules of the game and then just letting
Right.
them play the game.
Right.
That's very cool. So Todd, reminds me of your piece.
Mm-hmm.
When you get 17 people together the first time to whistle and sing at the same time, I would think that there's a lot of experimentation that's going on there as well. How much did you have to kind of get together with a group and workshop how a piece like that was going to work?
Well, it's just making sure that they're comfortable with the technique, and then the indeterminacy there is actually, it's not something that they have much of a choice in either. So it's
Right.
more of just setting up a situation and letting the result happen. And I think a lot of my work does that, where it's creating a situation, leaving something very specific open, and having the variation within that parameter create musical material.
This is a really interesting distinction between the way that you relinquish control in that piece and the way that Kristina relinquished control in the guitar quartet, is that you are not only giving up control from yourself, but the performers are basically just doing the sounds that they can make their physiology make. So in a sense that they don't have a ton of control over it either.
Right.
That's very cool. I imagine that when you're getting 17 people together to make these kinds of sounds, they're an interesting group of people that are pretty open to trying weird stuff, right?
I'd actually heard that the first group I did it with was not very open to experimental music.
Really?
But yeah, they seemed to enjoy doing this one, and they were happy to work with me, and it came out well. So
You think they were pleased with the outcome?
yeah, I think so.
Cool. So, Michael, you also... Oh, go ahead.
This question of indeterminacy makes me wonder how you guys are approaching your pieces for So Percussion. Because, if I write a piece for a clarinet, I know exactly what I'm going to get. I can notate a clarinet part, and I play clarinet, so I understand it very well. And that kind of sure-footed approach to the way you write for an instrument, it kind of goes out the door when you think about writing for percussion to begin with, because you're going to the world of saying, hit this thing with this thing because you think it'll probably sound sort of like this, or you can step away from having that much control and very self-consciously give over a lot of the control to whatever the performers do with it. I was wondering how you guys are approaching the problem of writing for So Percussion, where I don't guess you're going to get to workshop with them a lot or anything like that before you send them the piece. I guess you're just going to write it and send it. Is that true?
I think probably. I mean, I think we, are able to exchange emails with them and kind of trade ideas, but I think just because of geography, we probably won't be really workshopping in advance of that weekend.
Well, I guess the question I have for all of you is, A, how's the piece going? And B, do you feel like you're leaving a lot of space for indeterminacy to come in that very self-conscious way? Or are you trying to be very strict and, put it all down on the page?
I tend not to ever be very strict, and I don't have a primary instrument like you do, so it's not like there's one instrument family for which the idioms are very familiar, and I know exactly what's going to happen. So in each piece, I am creating a situation that's partially open and just waiting to see what the result of that is. So, most of my work is text scores, and although the instructions are specific, the outcome is always variable. So that's not uncomfortable for me.
Yeah, I would say for me, it's I'm not really concerned with the issue of control. I would say that to me, it actually seems like kind of a weird thing to talk about control and relinquishing control. It seems like it sets up this kind of That's never been, in my experience, the way it is working with performers is a power struggle. The way that kind of we're talking about it. For me, I'm trying. With this particular piece, I'm just working with percussion instruments a lot, getting them, spending time in the percussion studio, doing a lot of recording. So hopefully, once I finish writing the piece, I'll have a very clear idea about what it's going to sound like. And hopefully I can send them a recording of what it's going to sound like as like a starting point for them to work off of. Not saying that I want you to mimic the recording, but saying, here's a version. Now let's do another version of it. Something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, I can take a turn answering that as well, I guess. I don't know. I guess, yeah, control is, I agree, it's sort of a weird issue to discuss. I guess I would say I don't really have a problem doing something quite open or sort of indeterminate or something more strictly notated. I would consider both equal options. I figure that So Percussion is going to be creative and have input regardless. I guess I would say I'm interested recently, in general, in sort of the idea of genre bending and sort of, okay, we can explore different timbres and different rhythms and different multi-instrument setups and so forth, but what does that allude to, or what sort of statement does that make in terms of genre? So I think for me, the notation that I choose will kind of try to it will support that argument I'm trying to make in terms of genre.
All right. Sam, do you feel satisfied?
I do, except I will have to take issue with Todd. He says he doesn't have a primary instrument. I heard that he is a virtuoso quartz cantabile player.
Okay.
I don't know what those words mean that you just said.
That's the name of an instrument that I built a couple of years ago, which converts heat into sound. It's sort of a weird physics phenomenon where you have a tube closed on one end with a ceramic piece inside with channels through it, so it blocks heat, but the air can pass through. And if you get the closed end of the tube very hot, the air in that section expands and pushes through to the relatively cold side of the tube. And so just by having this extreme temperature and pressure differential in the tube, you get the air inside to oscillate back and forth and create what's, as far as I know, the purest tone that you can achieve acoustically.
Wow.
So it's basically it's sort of like an organ, and each tube plays one note. They're suspended over Bunsen burners, which are connected to a propane tank.
Do you have a YouTube video of this?
Yeah, there's stuff. How do I?
Okay.
We'll put a link up in our show notes. That sounds really fascinating, because I feel like I think I know what you're describing, but I feel like I need to see it to really understand.
Yeah,
Sure.
Well, Dave and I are both very DIY oriented, so I had to bring that up.
Yeah.
I'm actually looking at a website where there's a picture of you set up with this thing, and it looks like it would be not only sound pretty cool, but it would be really fun and maybe a little bit scary for certain people to watch.
Yeah, there's because it uses propane, there is a liability factor which prevents me from performing in some venues, but I don't think it's scary. Like the flames are pretty small and contained. I don't know. It's nice.
The fact that they won't let you into certain venues because of this just ups your street cred.
Right, that's a lot of street cred.
Yeah, that's what I'm going for, really.
Right, that's really the most important thing, right?
Yeah.
Right.
That's very cool. We should say, actually, this week we're going to record a new episode of our electronic music show called Patch In, and it's going to include an interview with a guy who is involved with the Margaret Guthman Musical Instrument Design Competition at Georgia Tech. So if this conversation about designing instruments intrigues anyone watching or listening, you should check out this week's Patch In, because you'll get a lot of that. And it's actually a kind of thing that is really appropriate for a discussion of percussion music, because they're so often just, inventing things. We actually had half of So Percussion on the show a few months ago, and we talked to them about the process of finding the instrument and often making the instrument. It's an interesting little bit that I think is applicable to the percussion writing thing. Do you have anything you wanted to add, Patrick? You're
No, I was actually. I mean, I just kind of really want to see that video.
Yeah.
So I'll have to search around for that.
Right. Right.
But maybe we could go on to the at least the one news story we have here.
What is that?
I didn't put it in there. I think Sam did, actually.
What do you got,
I
Sam?
did. Maria von Trapp, the last surviving member of the von Trapp family.
Like the real Von Trapps, not the people that were in the musical.
Yes, the people, the actual people who fled Nazi Germany and then performed all over the United States as a family, upon whom the 1959 Rodgers and Hammerstein musical and the subsequent film are based. She was 99, and she was the last member of that great musical family.
Wow, that's amazing.
So long, farewell.
Oh, I see what you did there.
Da-da-da.
Oh man, that was a jump the shark moment.
Yeah.
I think we're gonna wrap up the show. Thank you to all three of our guests this week. Thank you, Kristina, Michael, and Todd, for being with us. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thanks for having us.
We'll have links to your SoundClouds and your sites in our show notes if anybody is interested. Do you guys? We should, before we go, run down the three of you and see if you have any performances or anything like that coming up that you want to plug. What do you got, Kristina?
I actually just had one 2 nights ago.
Missed it.
Yeah. It was working with the, we brought 4 people from the vocal ensemble Acmeles, based in New York. We brought and we actually brought an all-male quartet, which had 2 falsettists. So we had a soprano, alto, baritone, bass represented. They made excellent music for us, really great working with them, and I hope to have that recording posted to my website and media soon.
Awesome, and we'll have a link to that in the notes as well. Michael,
Great.
You got anything?
Well, 2 quick things. One, an excerpt on my SoundCloud from premiere of a piece that I just did called Rose. But more importantly, tonight, I'm going to plug some of my friends in the Yale Percussion Group.
Do it.
The concert at 8 p.m. You can stream it online. They're doing Steve Mackey's It Is Time, the Reich Sextet, and a Takamitsu piece. So definitely stream that.
Love It Is Time.
2
Yes.
Really cool stuff.
Yeah.
Todd, do you have anything?
I also had a show yesterday evening doing a theremin piece of mine at The Wolf, which is an experimental performance space here in Los Angeles. And I'm working on some new stuff to do also there on April 20th.
All right. Excellent.
We'll look forward to those.
We'll have links to your sites where people can find more information about those things at soundnotion.tv/SN, where you can find links to all our shows. You can find links to our archive shows and the other shows that we have on the network. A lot of house ads this week. I plugged Patch in. I also want to plug this most recent episode of All the Cool Parts, which just went up this week.
Speaking of cool vocal music,
thank you for that, Sam. Really cool interview with Brad Wells, the founder of Roomful of Teeth, which is the ensemble that just won a Grammy for best chamber performance, and also performed the recording of the past year's Pulitzer Prize winning piece by Carolyn Shaw, Partita for 8 Voices. Really cool interview about their kind of discovery of vocal technique process. You should definitely check it out. That's at our site, soundnotion.tv/ACP. And then tonight next Sunday is the Oscars, and we will have a show for all of you film music folks of Streamers and Punches, our film music show, kind of reviewing the Oscar winners and their thoughts on that. That's going to be next week, so look for that in the very near future. All that stuff again on our site, soundnotion.tv/SN. You can also follow us on all of the social media machines. Follow us on Twitter. If you want to suggest a story for the show, you can tweet it at us with hashtag SN Weekly, and we always check that out when we're putting the show together. Like us on Facebook. It's weird to ask people to like you, but you should like us on Facebook. Subscribe to us on YouTube, in iTunes Store, on Stitcher Radio, whatever your podcast thing of choice is. We're in most of those places. If you know a place that we're not, let us know, and we'll try to get in there. You can support our show best by telling your friends to watch our show. You can also watch this show live. We stream the show on Sunday mornings, 11 a.m. Eastern Time at soundnotion.tv/live, and you can join us in chat and be a part of the conversation. Thank you to everyone who joined us this morning. SoundNotion's introduction includes music by Patrick Gullo and by Tyler Lepp. Thanks again so much for watching or listening, and we will see you back next week.